live show of this view of Daily News. I'm Stephen Farhay, your host, and I'll be taking you through some of the world's global news today on mental well-being, climate change, education, and of course business here on LinkedIn. So, first of all, I would like to declare a moment of sorrow for our great Queen Elizabeth II, who sadly died. Um, it's a morbid time for us here in the UK, as well as you in the US, who are also experiencing pain from the remembrance of September the 11th, some nearly 3 decades ago, where sadly the Twin Towers came under attack from two planes that crashed into the subsequent two towers and killed many American and various other groups of people. Um, it's a painful time. We have a recession, and with the death of our great Queen and remembrance of September 11th, there's a lot of emotions going on. So, remembrance first of those people that have died and our great Queen. Bringing you an update on business news. There is no such thing as a dead-end job. Today, I took the pleasure of writing an article reference from McKinsey. Really quite a fantastic research discovery, I think. Every job is an opportunity to develop skills that can lead to a better position. Now, this research is really interesting because it explores the idea that even, not that it's a downgrade job, a waitress, a bartender, can grow in confidence given the right support from management through coaching and other notions. They can really enhance their emotional intelligence. It's quite an interesting study, and it comes from the Global Institute reference to Human Capital at Work Value Experience Report, which McKinsey have quoted. So it's led by McKinsey. It's a really good example of how I think, and I agree as a humble thought leader myself, how we need to go into the future of work. We need to show up with more respect and management to our colleagues and also the new people that come on board. So no more, it's a case of you're not performing. It's a case of I can perform, but I need your help. I can grow in your company. And we simply do recruit people on their experience, which is the wrong way. And I've predicted that we are going to go, this is going to happen, a recruitment and selection bubble. So this is a great opportunity for managers, human resources practitioners to actually come in and change things, reference this research. It's not rocket science to treat people with respect. And I would argue that in this modern day of business, if we can send rockets to the moon, why can't we treat our colleagues with respect and dignity and let them aspire to grow? So those of you who've been challenged before in the past, not to have too many jobs, that's the wrong advice. Have as many jobs as you want because you'll grow in confidence, knowing that each job that you do have will equip you with the right skills further on. I will put a reference to the news article later on after this has been shot. A little ad note on that. I mean, I used to be told off by having many jobs. As I said, I think, having a multiple range of jobs is actually quite is excellent. Reference this research. So, to universities and schools, reference this article. McKinsey have also said this: you are growing future employees, and you're not growing graduate students. Okay, so graduation is secondary. It's growing future employees, and I think that schools and colleges really need to get behind that. Moving on to the war in Ukraine update. This is referenced BBC News have reported Russia's outnumbered 8-1 in Ukrainian offences. Now I've seen media reports, I'm sure you have, with Russians leaving equipment behind. Some media journalists have reported, although they are banned from the front lines, and rightly so, being a former soldier, I understand that, that they actually just ran from the battlefield. Ukraine army says it's took back 20 villages, okay, in the past 24 hours alone. Um, is the war turning? It's still sadly 20%, I believe, a fifth of Ukraine is under Russian territory. Um, but the tide is turning, it seems, and I am praying indeed, I'm sure as you are, for Ukraine to fight back, the wars to end and lives to be stopped ending. This is a really, war is good for no one, and I really want to champion that. Teachers' pay. Moving on to education news. There's a lot going on in this sector at the moment. I've long argued that global education system needs to change. The UK education system, I would say, is pretty much on its knees in a lot of areas. Good news, and I am a former teacher, so I have some understanding on this. Teachers' pay is rising to 5% this year, an increase of 3%, which has led to pay schools, sadly, out of a budget. Now, for example, I know that schools are having to choose between school trips and providing different resources, of which, sadly, they're having so many high costs on the supply chain for staff. They've had to just cut off school trips. And school trips are a wonderful thing. I remember as a child growing up, my family didn't have a lot of money, but the trips that we could go on, I thought was really beneficial to my education, and certainly as an adult now and a former teacher, I would say that the experience that a field trip gives to young pupils in schools is highly valuable. Um, we simply don't have enough money in the education system. And my question to you is, and if you can answer this in the comments, do you think we're ever going to have enough money in education? That is the question. Education school trips are going to be axed. So head teachers are in a turmoil. It needs to change, I think. It needs to be a lot of work done around that. Moving on, climate change news. This is around nuclear energy and ability to reformat energy sector. As we know, the cost of living crisis is extremely bad. Liz Truss has just came into our Prime Minister. Reading out from the government, this is reference, BBC News have reported this. The government plans to move nuclear and renewable electricity generators to lower price contracts to cut bills. Now, so we know, and this is quite where the bad news is, even more bad news, sadly. Previously, under our electricity supply, we only, for reference that I've, gone about reading data, this could be a little bit outdated. We only used to produce 10% more electricity than what we used. Now, the war in Ukraine has, ignited a global energy crisis. There are other factors to consider, but equally, everybody is in the same boat. But the UK's ambition here, or catalyst, as it were, to give growth to the market in terms of sustainable energy, is to cut these renewable electricity generators. Sustainable energy is important. And I think one of the fundamental flaws we have in the global energy crisis is that we simply haven't innovated enough. We haven't innovated enough to a degree where everybody has got enough energy in their own country. We having to, get gas from Russia, etc., which is one of the causes of the energy crisis. And the sad reality is that because we're still lots of parts of the world, including the UK, even though we're great at innovating and we're one of the world's number one on renewable energy in terms of wind farms, etc., we simply don't have enough sustainable energy, and that's the human impact of the fuels that we're using on climate change. As we know, the temperature is increasing; it will increase, the scientists predicted. In my own thought leadership, I'd say it's hard to reverse that. Some countries are innovating more than others, but climate change is real. We know that sadly in Pakistan, they're having some real severe problems with floods at the moment, as the same Bangladesh. people are losing their lives in other countries. Uh, and from my analysis last year, in terms of the fire season, which happens in Australia and some parts of Spain, that will increase over a 3 to 6 month period every year. So the fire season will just get longer and longer. Um, it's a real issue. So we really do have to start innovating more and increasing ability to produce sustainable energy. Moving on to mental health services news. Um, a story that I read today in the Guardian reports that a study questioned the worth of a company called Headspace, which is basically a digital wellness company, is questioning their validity on how much funding they're getting in Australia. Now, I've actually looked at the LinkedIn profile of Headspace, and I want to read it out to you because I think it's quite interesting. Basically, the Guardian reported that a psychiatrist has written this very short paper. I've read the paper, and it questions the validity on some of their worthiness in the funding based on some of the data coming out from their services. And they provide face-to-face help. They provide telehealth services. We know in the pandemic, telehealth was really important, especially for places like India where they have high population and big companies on recruitment, etc. So let me read this out to you. This is from Headspace. This is from their LinkedIn profile, which I think is quite interesting. Headspace is committed to advancing the field of mindfulness through clinical validated research with one of the largest research pipelines of any digital wellness company. Now, their particular clients and people they serve, obviously the Australian population, Starbucks, Adobe, even us, the NHS here in the UK, as well as Apple and Amazon. Now, they've had so far, correct me if I'm wrong, 2.3 billion in funding so far. They've helped 4.4 million different services to more than 700,000 young Australians, which is remarkable, really. And I think that the psychiatrist that's written this paper, as the CEO is defending that, and I am for Headspace. I'm doing a great job. I think that there's a lot of worth in their research, in what they're doing and trying to help people. And the psychologist is saying in a lot of ways that they're receiving too much funding and they should diversify that funding to first care, social care services. Now, as a humble researcher myself and my own independent research in between the relationship between mental health and emotional intelligence, I would argue, look, as well as the psychiatrist is pointing out some clear factors, when you talk about a mental health journey for young people or anybody, it's very different. And I think the case and the notion of some help is better than no help wins here. Yes, Headspace have received a lot of funding, but are also doing a tremendous amount of good work as well. And I think even with my own independent research, as I've argued before, there will never ever be enough funding in the world to look after everybody's mental well-being. And I think, reference to some of my notes here, the psychiatrist points out that there's been not much of a shift in mental well-being in the categories that Headspace have served. But I would argue, look, it's very hard. I'm only a very humble research here, but I'm going by evidence written here as well as my own research. Our mental well-beings change over time. It's like a roller coaster. And the support should be given more to, I think, women and younger generation, because the science says that their minds are not attuned to go through stuff like a pandemic or a recession. It doesn't mean that other generations are more powerful in the mind. It's just from research. So I would argue that Headspace funding is going in the right direction. Should there be more funding based on other services in terms of clinically approved training programs, committees, etc.? Yes, I do. Not just in Australia, but in all parts of the world. Moving on to my last news, sports news for the day. With respect to UK sports here, uh, many events are now going to be cancelled. Uh, reference to our great Queen Elizabeth II's funeral, which will be on September the 19th at Westminster Abbey at 11 a.m. 1 minute silence tonight at 8 p.m. I want to move on now to my last sports story, the NFL League, which I really think needs some attention. Um, Fantastic story here. How an Atlanta Falcons kicker, forgive me if I pronounce his name wrong, Young Ho Ko overcame a language barrier and being cut to thrive in the NFL. So I'm not sure what position he plays, but he is the second highest paid kicker in the league, having signed a 5-year contract extension with Atlanta this year. Now, he's from South Korea, from a story, and I'll put it in the comments from CNN. Reported this, a remarkable story that somebody that's really gone through the ranks in college and worked hard to build his language capabilities just by speaking to people within that sports training system. Um, and I just think it's a remarkable story how somebody can progress from that. And I think we can take a lot from that, especially in these difficult times. So that's all the news for you. Thanks for watching. I hope you can see me. The light's pretty shiny here today in the View Hotel. Please give feedback in the comments. It's my first news coverage, daily news. I hope to expand it, improve it every single day. Like anything, you have to start somewhere. I'm enjoying you bringing these insights and global news, and I will soon be ready to take guests on as I get investment in the future. I just want to thank you for watching this, whether you watch it live or whether you watch the replay. Like I said, feedback is most welcome. So, I'm Stephen Farhaig here with you, reporting live on LinkedIn News on some of the world's biggest problems and some of the insights and analysis that we can use to fix those problems. Thank you for watching. Join me weekdays here exclusively on LinkedIn Live and YouTube on our Emotional Intelligence channel, News for You. And I hope to bring you more updated news on some of the world's biggest problems and, in the future, some guests. Okay, thank you for watching. Take care. Goodbye for now.